Hey guys, what's up? It's Al. It is week 3 of NFL, and I'm going to take a first look at the Draftkings salaries, and we're going to build a lineup for you right here. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate all the support on the channel. I think that it's very possible that we might hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers this week. While that sounds like a very modest milestone versus some of the other content creators out there with hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, I appreciate every single one of you guys who have supported this channel over the past month leading up to and during NFL season. So thank you guys very much for the support. If you're new to the channel, appreciate you being here. Let's see if we can get to 1,500 likes on this video. The last couple of weeks for this first look, we've been at around 1,000, 1,100. See if we can push it up to 1,500 likes on this video. Please click the subscribe button and hit that notifications bell because I put out a lot of NFL content and you've got to see it. So without any further ado, let's just get over to DraftKings. Let's look at the salaries for week 3. Here we are. Got the Millionaire Maker, $4.2 million, $1 million first, $20 entry fee. Quarterback, I'm going to start with like kind of a cash game build here. Yes, we could pay up for Mahomes. You guys know that I've been on Mahomes since May at the ESPN Fantasy Football Summit. If you've watched that video on ESPN Plus with me like trying to convince the room that Mahomes is a top 10 quarterback, I had him at like 8 or 9 on the season coming in, that I thought he was like my QB8 or my QB9. And I'm trying to convince this room of super sharp, super smart NFL beat writers, fantasy players, fantasy writers, and analysts. And like some of the room was like, okay, I see the points you're making, and I agree. And some of the room was like, we don't know if he's good yet. I just thought he was, he is who I thought he was, essentially. He's beyond what I thought he was. Nobody was going to project 10 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. But with the weapons that they have on this offense, it's a quarterback's dream. And as you can see, completing 69% of his passes through the first 2 weeks, and both of them are away games. Nice. I don't know if we're going to play him this week in cash because we got to pay up to $7K to get him. And I think there's other options that are cheaper that allow us to spend on some of the other positions because the salaries do look tight this week. Kirk Cousins against Buffalo. They've been an absolute dream as well to play against, as have been the Kansas City Chiefs. Aaron Rodgers is what he is. We know. Kirk Cousins and this Minnesota offense is something we're going to have to take a look at this week, mostly because of volume concerns. We'll get to that when we get to the running backs. Garoppolo priced up here. Had a good YPA week last week. Just hasn't put fantasy points on the board. This was kind of an issue at the end of last year as well, with him not being able to guide this San Francisco offense into the end zone. He did have 2 touchdowns in week 2. He threw for 206 yards. We expected a bigger day out of him against Detroit, who is extremely beatable through the air. But at 6,500, I don't know if I want him more than I want Drew Brees at 6,400. Drew Brees is 6,400. And Drew Brees just keeps performing. Multiple touchdowns in his first 2 games this year. 34 points week 1, 17 points week 2. Coming way down off of this 7,200 salary. Definitely in consideration for me. Carson Wentz expected to be back at 6,200. Not that thrilled. Deshaun Watson, I am interested in once again at 6,100. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and everybody said how bad he looked. That's the thing with him. He can hit that one big touchdown and make everything okay. 40 yards on the ground. Has not scored a touchdown on the ground yet. We know that that's something that's in his locker. At 6,100, I think he presents us the floor and the upside. I talk a lot about regression when it comes to Deshaun Watson. He averaged, 26 fantasy points in the few games he played before he got injured last week or last year. And if he regresses 20% off of that total, he still averages 20 fantasy points a game, which is exactly what he's averaged through the first 2 weeks of the season. And at 6,100, when you're looking for 18 fantasy points against him or for him, I think he makes for a very good cash game play, as does Cam Newton at 6,000. Are we just going to forget about the fact that Cam Newton is also the type of guy who's going to have the rushing floor? Very realistically higher touchdown rushing upside on a game-to-game basis than somebody like Deshaun Watson. He took a murderous hit from a defensive player this week on a play where he gave himself up and bounced back and didn't even miss a play. The guy's a tank. 300-yard upside through the air, multiple touchdown upside through the air, and rushing touchdown upside as well with a 30 or 40-yard rushing floor. Cam Newton for 6K, in my opinion, just too cheap. Now we can get to the sub 6K guys. Jared Goff, we pick on teams that are in the bottom half, right, with Jared Goff. Bottom half in terms of passing efficiency allowed. The Chargers are not that team, at least to me. They have looked bad through the first 2 weeks, and if you look at it based on 2018 stats, yes, I agree with you. They're not going to be able to get as much pressure on the quarterback without Joey Bosa, but not the week for me to go with Jared Goff. It may pay off. I love Brandon Cooks in this offense. You guys know how I feel about Cooper Kupp, but I don't know if he's going to have that 333 touchdown day this week, and I really prefer these guys that are just above him. Alex Smith, not really an Alex Smith guy until he gets under 5,400. Phillip Rivers, not going to play him against the Rams. I'm probably not going to play anybody against the Rams this entire year. I feel kind of the same about the Minnesota Vikings. You guys know that I basically fade players when they're playing against the Vikings. Matt Ryan at 5,700 against New Orleans. This is very interesting. King of the 275-yard game, 251 in week 1, 272 in week 2. If he doesn't run these 2 touchdowns in, he has 19 fantasy points last week. And he is not the type of guy who runs in touchdowns. This is a legit concern for me, and I think that a lot of people are going to go after Matt Ryan this week because of the matchup against New Orleans. I think he's a good play. I don't think he's as good a play as Cam Newton or Deshaun Watson, and you're only saving 300 and 400 down there. Trubisky against Arizona, I think, is in play at 5,500. Again, I'm not getting enough savings. Down at the cheap end, not loving it. I'm just not. So I'm going to lock in Cam Newton with apologies to Deshaun Watson, who I like very much, but I'm going to go with Cam Newton, see if on the first look we can save 100. Bortles, if Fournette is out, is a good point from the chat. Thank you, UNC. If Fournette is out, Bortles' numbers kind of go through the roof. I want to play Alvin Kamara. I don't know if I can, though. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit him because on Monday when we're recording this, and it's 10 a.m. on the West Coast, I live in Los Angeles, on Monday, Alvin Kamara is 9,500. He's playing against Atlanta. You saw what Christian McCaffrey did last week against Atlanta. Atlanta, for 2 years running, has funneled targets to wide receivers. They've given up more catches, more pass attempts, more targets, and more receiving yards than basically any other team for the last 2 years to opposing running backs. Last week, a very good pass-catching running back in Christian McCaffrey got 15 targets, which is insane for a running back. 14 catches. They've lost 2 more of their linebackers. They're not going to be able to defend running backs as well as they did before, and they couldn't defend them before on pass routes out of the backfield. And now you've got Alvin Kamara in week 3. I think he's just got the best floor of any running back available in week 3. He should see 8, 9, 10 targets. He should catch 7, 8, 9 balls. On Draftkings with full PPR, that already puts him without yardage at a touchdown and a half. Figure 50 yards receiving as a floor, in my opinion. Now he's at 14 fantasy points. He hasn't carried the ball yet, and he's got 14 fantasy points. We need to get over 20 from him, right? We need 23, 24 fantasy points. I think that he gets there this week for 9,500. I'm not having a problem rostering him and expecting my opponents to figure out where they're going to find those points. I have a problem figuring out how we're going to fit him. So let's start with him and see if we can. Melvin Gordon III, love the inclusion in the passing game way more than in years past. I think he's going to have to catch a lot of balls this week because the Rams aren't going to allow any efficiency on the ground. Not that he's been the most efficient player on the ground for the past few years. Ezekiel Elliott against Seattle, interesting, but I don't like running backs on the road. Saquon Barkley against Houston, massive amount of targets last night. 11 carries, 28 yards behind a horrendous offensive line, but 16 targets and 14 catches. We saw this a lot in week 2, that teams are really utilizing their running backs out of the backfield. Tevin Coleman also going to be kind of a player that I'm going to have to consider at 6,400 because of the fact that we're going to get 20 touches out of him, and some of that's going to be included in the passing game. 4 targets last week, 16 carries, didn't get the goal line work. That went to Matt Ryan. But at 6,400, I think he's one of the better values right now on the board. I think that Chris Thompson, also a great value on the board. 7 targets in week 1, 14 targets in week 2, not expecting 14 targets every single week. Let's get that off the table first. Not expecting 14 targets every single week. Okay? I'm just not. I am expecting against Green Bay that they're going to have to move the ball to be effective. It's not going to be a 17-13 game. They're going to have to score 25 plus points to win this one, which means they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. Alex Smith loves utilizing his running backs out of the backfield to catch passes, and I think that 7 targets is a good floor for Chris Thompson, with 10 targets being kind of a ceiling look for him. And at 6,300, with the amount of catches that he could or should have, 6, 7, 8 catches in this game, as well as 4 or 5 rush attempts, and his big playability, I think he makes for a good tournament play. I don't know that I like him in cash, though, better than Tevin Coleman. The guy that I want to play and the guy that I'm also scared to play is Dalvin Cook. I think he's a tremendous talent. I think they're easing him in, though. And he did pull a hamstring late in that game. Or didn't pull it. He had a hamstring injury. He did not a pull. He did come back in that game. I need to know if Dalvin Cook is going to be a full go this weekend, because I don't want to pay $7,100 for 10 carries. I just don't. Unless he's going to get 10 targets, unless there's a realistic chance at him getting 10 targets, I don't want to pay that. I would prefer that Dalvin Cook, as much as I don't want a player to get injured, right? I don't want any player to get injured. But if Dalvin Cook is injured, Latavius Murray becomes chalk for me at 5,800, knowing that he should, in the case that Dalvin Cook is injured, get 15 plus carries. Probably not going to get much usage in the passing game, but he'll catch a couple, and Buffalo is going to be a team that we want to stream players against all year long. As it looks right now, for Dalvin Cook to pay off that $7,100 in salary, he's going to have to score touchdowns because he's not going to get 20 touches. That's an issue for me. Another player that I really like, Jordan Howard, 6,500. The knock on Jordan Howard was that he can't catch, right? He's just going to be a guy who's going to carry the ball, never going to get included in the pass game. Nagy's got a very dynamic offense. It's going to require that his running backs catch the ball. He worked very hard on it in the offseason. A lot of people thought that Tariq Cohen was going to eventually take the job from Howard and play more snaps. Week 1, Jordan Howard did great. Caught 5 balls on 5 targets for 25 yards. You give me that sort of floor against this Arizona team that cannot move the ball, cannot score, should theoretically be playing from behind in this game. And though it is a running back on the road, I like Jordan Howard at 6,500 more than I like Dalvin Cook at 7,100 against an equally bad defense and in a situation where they can score points. I'm going to plug Jordan Howard in and see if we can get there with a cheap player at wide receiver. Giovanni Bernard at 5,900 against Carolina, going to be playing all the snaps with Joe Mixon hurt. Jay Ajayi not playing enough. The chat just said if he blows up tonight, if Jordan Howard blows up on Monday Night Football, he will be the chalk this week. I don't disagree. Kind of rooting for him to have kind of just a mediocre game. Like, I want the volume to be there. I want like 15 carries and like 4 targets and like maybe 70, 80 yards from scrimmage and no touchdowns tonight. If he can do that on Monday Night Football, I think that holds his popularity down for week 2. If he has 2 touchdowns and 5 catches on Monday Night Football, he's going to be the highest owned player based on the way the salaries look to me, at least right now. Malcolm Brown, someone we're going to have to monitor with Gurley leaving that game early. Eckler's been outstanding through 2 weeks, but I don't want to play him against the Rams, but he does provide at least salary relief at 4,400. Corey Clement, again, somebody you're going to monitor if Ajayi is out this week. We'll see. And Sproles is out. We'll have to see how it goes. Where's the guy that I'm looking for? Lindsey, 4,600. Ridiculously efficient because of that 53-yard run. You take that away, he had 13 carries for 50 yards, and it's not all that outstanding, right? Somebody you're going to have to think about for tournaments at 4,600. He is definitely the lead back in this offense, though not the goal line back, as the goal line carries have gone to Freeman. Deion Lewis against Jacksonville. I don't play players against Jacksonville. Buck Allen, one of the least efficient backs in the league, but if he's going to get 7 targets at 4,000, we have to consider him at least. I'm looking for cheap running backs for you guys. They love Lindsey, but it's a 3-headed monster in Denver is kind of my issue with it. Right? There's 3 guys, and they're all getting snaps. And it's not like New England snaps, where we know what they're going to get and we know what their role is from week to week. Tariq Cohen's an interesting GPP shout. I don't know if I want him in my cash game lineup. But, like, we're kind of at the dregs here. This might be Matt Breida. 5,400 against Kansas City. We know what players have done, but again, volume of concern for 5,400. You're only getting, 10 to 15 touches. He's splitting very, very evenly with Alf Morris right now. If he takes the job, which I kind of expect him to do, I'm always going to bank on the younger player. When it comes to a young running back versus an old running back. Matt Breida definitely in a spot where he can do well. Alex Collins been very efficient the first couple of weeks, but has ceded a lot of because of game flow and because of other situations. In a fumble in week 1, he ceded a lot of the snaps to Buck Allen, but has been way more efficient and looked more explosive when he's out there than has Allen. I mean, right now, I think it's just Coleman. It's Coleman or it's where'd he go? It's Coleman or it's Thompson. And right now, based on touches, I'm going to prefer Coleman because he's also going to get the goal line work there. Moving on to wide receiver. Don't know that we're going to be able to afford a top wide receiver here, guys. Just don't. Based on the fact that we want to play Kamara, I don't think that it's possible. Aaron Jones off suspension. There you go. DST. We always just plug a 3K. Okay, this is the disclaimer, guys. I don't care about defense on the first look lineup. I plug the 3K defense. Whatever defense is 3K, I just plug that one in. Last week, people looked at me after the first look. Somebody said, I don't think the Patriots are a good defense. I said, you clearly didn't watch the video, sir. I don't care who that defense is. Okay, I see that it's the Eagles now, right? I don't care. I plug in a 3K defense because it gives us a good idea of where we need to go with the rest of the lineup based on salary and average price of player remaining. Let's look at tight ends because I think this is important. 4.6 only in salary remaining if we want to have Alvin Kamara in our lineups. Can we get a cheap? Well, I mean, Trey Burton. 6 targets in week 1 and didn't go off. Arizona, not good on defense. I like picking on them. Tyler Eifert against Carolina, not going to get a ton of snaps, not going to get a ton of targets. Is there any cheap tight end otherwise that's solid down here? Jake Butt? 6 targets, 4 in week 1, 6 in week 2. I think he's at least somebody to monitor at 2,700. Too many tight ends in Baltimore, right? They're all 3 splitting snaps. Ben Watson. Will Dissly, I know that the chat is going to love Will Dissly because he had a monster game in week 1, but I'm not buying it, especially at 3,300 when Burton is 39 against a team that's going to have trouble stopping him. Evan Ingram, I don't think they can throw the ball down the field. He did have a good game against Dallas. Kittle up to 4,500 now. How do you price him up to 4,500 after a 4-target game? I mean, he was too low last week, but that's too high. Disley's a blocker who runs a 4.840. Yeah, but he looked good receiving, though. He didn't look like a blocking tight end in the run of play. And, you know, Russ Wilson's going to throw for touchdowns. It's just a matter of where they go. Ian Thomas, I don't know that Ian Thomas is good. We could think about paying up, but I don't know if there's enough value at wide receiver to get 3 sub 4K wide receivers. I don't think that's a possibility. So I think we're going to have to pay down. We're going to go with two Bears, it looks like. Trey Burton to me. 3,900. I'll go with the cheap tight end that's going to get me 6, 7, 8 targets. Works for me. Hopefully he doesn't have a big coming out game on Monday Night Football to blow this up. 4,900. Average salary remaining for wide receivers. Got 14,700 left over. I love Steph Diggs. I mean, obviously, he's an American hero. I want to play him. I don't think we can play him in a lineup with Kamara. I think that he is a solid play against Buffalo. I like him a lot. I like a lot of Minnesota players. I want to get him in there, but I don't know how I'm going to do it yet on Monday. By Friday or Sunday, we may put ourselves in a different position and have a lot of them. T.Y. Hilton at 6,700 has looked great. First of all, Brandon Cooks has looked awesome. 9 targets, 8 targets. If he's going to get that sort of supply every week, 7K is too cheap for him. I think he's in play. T.Y. Hilton, 11 targets, 11 targets. Also in play. I mean, I kind of want that for 300 less. I mean, that's going to make me move off the Eagles so that people don't say you're playing a defense against the Eagles defense. I'll just plug in a different defense. That's fine. Whatever. Aguilar at 6,100. We have an average salary of 4,000. So we need a cheapo. We need a cheap wide receiver that we can plug. Jakeem Grant? No. We need a cheap guy. Tavon Austin last night? Everybody's saying Tavon Austin had a great game. He had 2 targets, guys. Yes, he caught a 64-yard touchdown. He had no volume. He had 2 targets. Let's not freak out about the 2 targets. I like these 6 and 5 targets a lot better. for 3,500. I'll take more targets than less. Zay Jones getting a lot of run right now because they've released their slot Curly, their slot wide receiver, and Zay Jones playing the slot now. We're gonna have to take a chance on one cheap wide receiver, at least. Chat's screaming the guy that I was gonna talk about, and I can't find him, so I'll just look him up. And it's Tyler Boyd. 5 targets and 9 targets. He's got as many looks almost as AJ Green. He's got more air yards than AJ Green. 3,700 is just too cheap. It's just too cheap. Leaving us 4,300. Martavis? What is Martavis' salary this week? 3,400 for Martavis. 4 targets, though. Big game ability. I think he's more tournament for me than cash, right? Martavis has big time, big play ability. Yes, his quarterback looked great this week. I'm not the biggest Derek Carr fan in the world. I'm not a big, detractor of his. I'm just never thrilled to play him or any of his targets, as you guys have known for the last few years. I think Bryant's okay for tournaments. I'm not too thrilled with him in cash. And we need to find a 4,300. Let me move off this Eagles defense before people start lighting up the chat. Baltimore against Denver? Sure. Whatever. I'm sorry, chat. I just don't care about the defense in a first look lineup. Like, the defense will become clear as time goes on. Now, Geronimo Allison is interesting to me. 4,500, getting a lot of run. I do like Allison at that price. Shepard, Marshall, Jordy, Corey Davis, not against Jacksonville. Pettis, ran a lot of routes this week. I haven't really dug into that yet, but only 2 targets. They tried to get the ball to him on a run, and he fumbled that one, kind of muffed the handoff. DJ Moore, a lot of involvement yesterday in terms of routes run. Caught a touchdown, only 2 targets, not that involved. Calvin Ridley, 5 targets, 2 targets in week 1. I kind of feel that it's right here, guys. I do. Kind of feel that it's right here. Geronimo Allison, 7 targets a game. Randall Cobb, 6 targets in week 2. I'd love to play Cooper Kupp if I could get up to Cooper Kupp. Y'all know my feelings for Cooper Kupp, and I think he's too cheap, like literally all the time. But I'm going to finish this off with Geronimo Allison. Wide receiver looks rough, but I'm all right with it. Allison, Boyd, Hilton at wide receiver. We got Alvin Kamara in there. We got Jordan Howard. We got Tevin Coleman. We can come off of Kamara and make wide receiver look better if that's what you like. The defense does not matter to me. Trey Burton, high volume tight end with a lot of targets. And Cam Newton, big time upside. I like this lineup the way it looks right here on Monday. It's obviously going to change. Pay attention throughout the week. Look out for my article on ESPN Plus called Best Buys. DFS Edge podcast comes out every Thursdays. Fridays, I'm right here on Twitch with the question and answer, helping you build lineups for an hour. And then right before lock every Sunday for the Anti-Tinkercast. 45 minutes right until lineups lock and games kick off on Sunday morning on twitch.tv/Alan_Smizzle. Let me know in the comments section down below what you guys think about this lineup. Who would you play? Who did I miss? What do you like? And I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.